Hi, everyone. Mike White here. Welcome to this week's vlog post. Well, confirmation of what we've been talking about here for quite some time came through. Um, I guess it was yesterday uh, when we all realized one of the things that we've talked about over and over and over again, that the BLS numbers are nonsensical, to say the least. And we know that the markets react far too violently to what the BLS jobs report is every month. And the problem with that is the markets never react to all the revisions. Now, I've shared my opinions here, and we've talked about this over and over again about the lack of value in the BLS numbers. To be honest, I want to rename the BLS to basically lying statistics, because the statistics that they're putting out there are ludicrous, to say the least, and damn near fraudulent if you really want to look at it. Because the Bureau of Labor Statistics goes out there and their job is to compile the data and report back to the government and to people the state of the job market in the United States. And we've talked about it repeatedly, about their methodology, the algorithms they're using, seasonally adjusted nonsense, things that when we compare them to what ADP and other metrics are looking at, or even what employers are telling us, we realize that these numbers at times are not even in the ballpark of what reality it is. And the problem with that is they paint a picture that is not necessarily remotely accurate to what's going on in the job market. And that really impacts, Fed decisions. The Federal Reserve Bank, Jerome Powell will tell you they're very data dependent, and they take the BLS numbers very seriously. So they're taking these BLS numbers seriously, and they're talking and they're looking and making decisions about the economy and how things are going and where, the Fed funds rate should be. And nobody's looking back at the data that says we're constantly adjusting, and we're always, just for some strange reason, it looks like we're always adjusting the numbers lower. And this is not a one-off event. So Wednesday, we got the BLS came clean and said, okay, year over year. Well, year over year, the BLS was off by 818,000 jobs to the downside. 818,000 jobs. They miscalculated. That's almost 70,000 jobs a month. So when people are sitting there throwing numbers around, it's bad enough. It's bad enough that the government lies about the economy to bolster their own circumstance. And it's both parties that do it. So I'm not trying to be political here. But the reality of it is, people look at this stuff and say, well, we've created 10 million jobs or 15 million jobs or 18 million jobs. Well, first of all, you didn't create 10 million or 15 million or 18 million jobs, because number one, most of the jobs that have been created over the last 4 years are been created of people who went back to work who were not working because of COVID. So it's not like you created a new job. It's people went back to the job that they weren't doing because they were staying home. So that's number one. Number two, well, here's another almost million jobs that you're counting because the BLS said to count them. And now it's August, and buried in the middle of August right now. Again, is it coincidence that this is happening now? Is it coincidence that they do it in August? A couple of weeks before Labor Day, we're going to annually adjust it in August. And so here we are, and nobody's going to notice that our numbers were off by 818,000 jobs. The markets are going to look at this and say, oh, well, but it's too late. How many times do we see volatility in the mortgage market because of the jobs report? And the BLS is throwing stuff out there, and we've talked about it and said, I don't know what these people are looking at. Why are the ADP numbers so completely different? ADP, who works on actual payrolled people, where the government's working on algorithms and phone calls and adjustments that they can't even explain to other people. So it's just gotten to the point where, and again, I'm venting about this, but I think, to be honest with you, the time has come. Whoever wins this next election in January after their inauguration needs to either fire everybody at the BLS and eliminate the organization and use ADP numbers if we need something, or fire everybody at the BLS and hire some new people, because new people, they can't possibly get it this wrong. I bring in whoever you want, but they can't get it this wrong. And the problem is, whoever's in there, who's ever in there responsible for this, if they worked for you or they worked for me, we would have fired them to be off this bad consistently. Whatever it is they're doing, it's not working. And so it's got to be changed drastically. And I am not convinced that anybody who's working there now has the wherewithal, the knowledge, or the desire to do anything about this. So I think it's just going to have to wait until whoever wins the election next year to look down and say, guess what? We got to go in there and just either eliminate this whole thing and use ADP, or fire everybody and start from scratch, because this ain't working. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about this week, on a lighter note, if you will, the movers and shakers of the world of money are all in Jackson Hole, Wyoming for their annual meeting. And it's going to be really interesting to see the news coming out and what Jay Powell is going to have to say on Friday. And so I think it's really important, we talk about it here, things that can move the market. What's coming out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming this week? This morning, we're going to have initial claims and continuing claims. What is that going to tell us? What is Jerome Powell going to say at Jackson Hole? Clearly, he's not going to tell you about, exactly what his, plans are for the rate environment. But the markets have already priced it at 25%, a 25 basis point cut to the Fed funds rate, and there's an outside shot of 50. Maybe something he says, changes the opinion of the markets, but they certainly can be market moving. And I think it's really important, because you're going to sum it up with the end of the Democratic National Convention, which is going to end this week. And we're going to go full tilt into, okay, here we are, and here's what's going on. And, here are the people that are running for president, and the market's going to react the way they're going to react. So it's really important. And certainly the other thing I want to put out there to you guys is we're finishing up the first full week of life after the NAR settlement was supposed to take effect. And I'd like to hear from you. I've gotten a mixed bag of responses from the people that I talk to about what they're seeing. And some people have seen very clearly, contract language that has spelled out things. Other people have seen addendums and supporting documents to cover it. Some people have told me that the contracts that they saw over the weekend didn't look any different than the contracts they had been using all along. So I'm guessing it's spotty, to say the least. But I want to know from you guys. I'd love your feedback. What are you seeing? Do you have copies of anything you want to send over? Share with what you're looking at, if you can get a copy of, I'd like to see a boilerplate listing agreement. How does that differ from what you've seen, well, what your agents were using? It's a great conversation to have with listing agents in your market. How are they handling that conversation with their clients? How are the buyer's agents? Have you seen a buyer's agency agreement up front? All that data, I think, is important. I'd love it if you could share it with me so I can share it with others. As always, if you have questions or comments or something you'd like to share with me, Mike, imtcoaching.com. I'll talk to you again next week. Take care.